Greetings everyone, and welcome back to Pep Organ. Today I'm going to be talking about why I'm not upgrading to Hauptwerk 7. This is not going to be a review of Hauptwerk 7 or a discussion of how to install it, but just a discussion about why I'm not getting it. So believe it or not, I'm still on Hauptwerk 4 with my current system. I'm using a 2011 iMac, which runs perfectly with 16 gigs of RAM, and it's absolutely fine, does Hauptwerk 4 just fine. And I'm sure that it could run Hauptwerk 7 as well if I had to do some upgrades, but there's a few reasons that go beyond just the software and the hardware about why I'm not upgrading to Hauptwerk 7. And I thought I'd discuss those in case you're wondering right now about whether you would like to get it. I've been using Hauptwerk 4 for about 10 years now, and I find it perfectly suitable for my needs. So that's the first reason that I'm going to say. Hauptwerk 4 is perfect for what I need it to do. I know that there's additional features that have been added to Hauptwerk 5, 6, and now 7, which have been audio improvements and things like that. They've not been anything that has really compelled me. I've always been happy with the systems that I've been running. I've used Hauptwerk 4 on a number of different devices, and they've been fine. I've had no real problems. It runs on pretty limited hardware requirements. The same is true, of course, of Hauptwerk 7, but there is some differences as well, which I will get into as we proceed. Now, one of the biggest reasons that I'm not getting Hauptwerk 7 is the lack of new features. And by this, I don't mean that there aren't any features. Of course, there's a lot of new features. They're going to release things, of course. But there are features that I don't find very compelling. There was one nice feature, I will admit, which is the global customizable pistons. So the idea that you could set up your pistons on your organ to be working on each instrument, on each sample set. That's a nice idea, because then you could have your set button as your set for all of them, and you could have general pistons and sequencer settings for all your organs. And that's pretty handy, especially if you have a lot of organs and you have a lot of different setups. But I don't think it's a must-have, because ultimately, once you've set up all of those things when you first get or buy an organ, then you don't need to think about it again. And so this is a convenience thing, but it's not particularly a feature that I have to have. Especially, I don't really have many instruments to start with. So since there's no features that I'm particularly interested in at the moment, I wanted to talk about some features that I would like to see in a future release, because this is the real reason what would compel me to upgrade, and I think some of you as well. So one of them would be more customization of the organs. So what I mean by this is the ability, and I don't know how this would affect copyright and the licenses and things of these different organs, but I think this would be a really useful feature in an advanced edition, or in the perpetual license, for example, or even in an advanced subscription. What I mean by support for combining organ sets would be if you can take, for example, a Zimmermann organ and a Cavaille-Coll organ and mesh them together in your own custom way. So you could take the 8-foot Monch of the Cavaille-Coll of a French organ, combine it with an 8-foot Principal of a Dutch or German organ, and just listen and try and hear how that sounds. And of course, you could adjust them so that the pitches are the same and the temperaments are the same. But you could make some really interesting music and try something that I think we've never heard before, because every organ sort of belongs to a period. In recent years, we've had a lot of eclectic organs. But in terms of combining two organs together, it would be such an interesting experiment to see how that would work and what it would sound like. And I think it would be a lot of work, but I think it would really justify an upgrade, because I would love to try that. I think a lot of people would. Another feature that would be really helpful would be the ability to adjust the pitches of individual pipes. Now, I don't know if any of you have encountered this, but this has been a real problem for me. On about 3 or even 4, I think all the sample sets that I have, there's always 1 or 2 pipes on a particular stop, sometimes a prominent stop like a reed, that are out of tune. And you're so frustrated because you paid all this money for this, sampled organ, but then one pipe is out of tune. And so for certain pieces, you might just not want to use that stop at all. So if you could go into the file and adjust the pitch and tune it just like you were an organ tuner, then you could fix that problem straight away. Another feature that would be really nice to have, again, it's sort of a tinkering thing, but I mean, why not add these if you want Hauptwerk to be a really sophisticated program, would be a built-in temperament creator. So we know that Hauptwerk has a number of built-in pre-installed temperaments, so that you can change to a Baroque tuning or a Romantic one, or even go back to medieval. What Hauptwerk hasn't done, though, is they haven't shown you how they've done the tunings and what they're basing it off. And that's very useful for people who are really in the know about that, because they're curious about what Hauptwerk means when it talks about a certain temperament. And if they're going to do that, then they might as well build in a sort of do-it-yourself, build your own temperament. I've found this really interesting, that you can actually import a temperament to Hauptwerk. I did this once because I wanted to experiment what a scale would sound like if you had perfect seconds consecutively. I thought that would be a really interesting thing to hear, and it was absolutely fascinating to try that out. And I just think that it would be really great if Hauptwerk could have that as part of their software, built straight into the program. And the other feature that would be useful, and something that I think people have tried doing, but I don't think it's been fully supported by the software, would be integrating real pipework with digital pipework. And so, of course, Hauptwerk cannot tune or change the temperament for real pipes. But what you could do is you could have a Hauptwerk organ or a set of stops that complement a real organ built, and then, of course, hardware-based. It would be a regular console with pistons and so on and stops. And then some stops would activate real pipes and some stops would activate Hauptwerk, but it would all work within the same integrated system. That would be a really nice feature. And of course, if you really want us to upgrade to Hauptwerk 7, one of the big things that you could add or to make it compelling would be, of course, to bring in another free organ. I understand, of course, that you don't want everything to be free, and there are a lot of vendors who want to be selling their instruments. But at the same time, if you had a new organ that really utilized the new audio enhancements of Hauptwerk 7, that was built in from the start to utilize all of that, then it would be a really compelling upgrade. Even if you just had the new organ, maybe not for free, but if it was at a discount if you upgraded, those kind of things would be much more compelling. Now, the final reason I'm not upgrading to Hauptwerk 7 is more of a philosophy or a principle, which is that I don't support regular software releases. Now, this might be strange because a lot of people would like to be up to date all the time. But for me, I feel that the software that I've just bought, if I've just bought a piece of software like this new Hauptwerk, I want it to be modern for a few years. I want it to be up to date. Honestly, I'd be happy to pay a lower annual subscription so that I could have my Hauptwerk system up to date at all times. But let's just look back, and I looked back at the Hauptwerk releases throughout the years. So Hauptwerk 1 actually came out back in 2002. Then Hauptwerk 2 came out in 2006, so that's 4 years. Hauptwerk 3 came out in late 2007, and then Hauptwerk 4 came out in 2011. And I think that kind of cycle is absolutely fine. Hauptwerk 5 even came out in 2019, so we had an 8-year gap. But then Hauptwerk 6 has come out in 2020, Hauptwerk 7, that was November 2020, and then Hauptwerk 7 has come out in January 2022. So it's starting to look like there's almost going to be a yearly cycle of updates now. And I'm not comfortable with that because now, every year, you're feeling like you have to keep up with the newest software. And of course, you don't have to buy into that. You don't have to think that way. And in a sense, that's what I'm doing. Because I think that Hauptwerk 4 was fine. I haven't seen compelling reasons to upgrade to 5, 6, or 7. And so I don't want to feel outdated, but I'm sort of stuck in this position because I know that if I upgrade to 7 now, I get the feeling that I'm just going to be out of date again in a year. And I'm not going to do the subscription thing because I would rather pay outright in this case. I'd like to own the software rather than rent it. Also, in terms of the compatibility, as I said before, I have a 2011 iMac here. It's very capable of running Hauptwerk 4. I've checked and it does meet the requirements to run Hauptwerk 7. However, I would have to do a software update, and these kind of things can be fiddly and then quite annoying. And even if I've heard stories that Hauptwerk 7 is installed just fine, I believe that, but I still nonetheless, on principle, believe that if you keep upgrading software all the time, there's bound to be compatibility issues along the line. And in terms of compatibility, this is a really big thing I want to mention because as you can tell, I'm a Mac user, and yet Hauptwerk 7 has still not provided native support for M1 Macs. And this is really bad because we know that the future is here, that M1 Macs have come out. They've been out for more than a year now, and Apple is going to replace all their Intel Macs with M1 in the coming year. And the fact that Hauptwerk hasn't natively provided support yet is a real problem, because it suggests that they're not really supporting the Mac operating system anymore. And that bothers me as well, because I want to have that reassurance that what I'm buying will last for many years. And if Hauptwerk 7 had said, we have M1 Mac support natively, then I know that even one day when this Mac gets too old or it just breaks down or something, I can go to the Apple Store, get a new Mac, and it will be perfectly compatible with Hauptwerk 7. But it's not. So, and I know that people have tried it, and it does seem to work, but there is a difference, a major difference for people who know that if you're trying to emulate Hauptwerk, such a sophisticated and RAM-intensive program like Hauptwerk, and then emulate that through emulation, so Intel-based emulating through Rosetta into M1, it's never going to be as good. So Hauptwerk needs to get onto this and really put out M1 support. Otherwise, I don't really feel the need to upgrade. So those are the reasons why I'm not upgrading to Hauptwerk 7. I hope that some of you feel the same way about this, that there could be additional features that they could bring in. Some of them, for example, giving us a new organ, a free organ or a discounted one, bringing in support for combining organ sample sets or adjusting the pitches, tuning your organs. All these things would be great features. And then lastly, if you're a Mac user like myself, we're just waiting for that M1 support so that we have the reassurance that our purchase will be worth it down the line. So I hope you learned something today, and please remember to subscribe to Pep Organ. Thank you.